I'm going to iron my image. Okay, it's not perfectly ironed, but I think that will be okay. All right, so first of all, this is a little kit that I got. It's actually an embroidery DIY art kit, and it comes with all of the embroidery threads, which I haven't had a go at before. And I'm really looking forward to it. But I decided to combine it, do some mixed media. So what I'm going to do is some of the things I'm going to do with wool, needle felting. For instance, the black. I think I'm going to do most of the black with wool. Probably these big purple bits and the kind of blocks of colour. And then the plan is to sort of leave the lines to do with wool, possibly even these little dots as well. So I'm just going to have a play really, and you're welcome to join me for this experiment. So in the kit came with this fabric, which is like kind of a cotton, linen-y type thing. It's lovely actually, but very creased. So even though I've ironed the heck out of it, it still looks like there's some creases on it. But I'm hoping by the time that gets actually stretched out when I put it in its embroidery hoop later, but that will be okay. So obviously I don't need an embroidery hoop for the felting, so I'm just going to get started with my wool. So I've got some black wool here. I'm using wool from Sweet Pea Dolls. This is Handcrafter fast felting wool. So love this wool. So that's what I'm going to start with, is my black. So if you want to watch me as I felt this, then you are very, very welcome. And I'm just going to make sure that you can see everything properly. Okay, so the first thing is going to give myself a little bit of light. Oh, just realised I just put my needle in the fabric there. I'm going to have to be careful of that because it's going to create holes, which I'm not used to with working with like wool felt and things. So I'm going to start on these big blocks of wool. So I'm just going to roll the wool out, start in this corner of the wing. Makes a slightly different sound. Not sure if you can hear that, but it's a slightly different noise than it makes on a wool felt background. Bit noisier. Make sure I'm sticking to my line. And I'm just going to come up and just fill in all of these little bits. So in order to make sure that I'm keeping to the lines, I'm just putting a slight twist in the wool before I lay it down. I may regret starting with black, because the one thing that does tend to happen with black is that when you're using the lighter colours over the top, it can sort of contaminate the black. So this will be an interesting experiment, we'll see. May have to go over some areas afterwards. So it's not bad to needle felt onto, just a bit noisier. It does feel quite stiff, so that's nice about working on it. So there's the back of it. You can just see the wool coming through the back there. Lift that up a little bit. I tend to kind of grab the end of my wool when I'm working, and this is just so that I can guide it to where I want it to go. As opposed to if you just put your wool down like this and start stabbing, then it kind of gets a lot more fluffy. So, and also tearing little strips off as well is really helpful. So just give it a little gentle twist, firstly to just start me off. Start back here. Fill in a little bit more of these bits where I can see some kind of a little bit of thread there. The reason that I started with the black is because it's what I had to hand, quite honestly. Probably could have started with the purple, that might have been a better idea. Or yellow, actually I have got some yellow to hand. I should have probably started with the yellow. But we shall see. This is just an experiment and it's quite an enjoyable project actually. So have you ever tried mixed media? I'd love to know. And have you ever tried embroidery? I mean, I love the idea of embroidery. I've done some cross stitch before, but I haven't actually done embroidery. Not that I can remember anyway. So our black is starting to take shape now. I'm going to put a bit more of this down. Keep my line nice and clean. I'm just putting my needle at an angle. And the great thing is you can just tease your fibres where you want them, just by grabbing, manipulating. So like here, I don't want to go over that white bit, so just pull the fibres out of the way. Another little white bit there, I don't want to cover that, so I'm just going to check where I am. I'll come back round there with that one. Just in case you can hear the tractors in the background, I'm just going to change the volume slightly. Got the there's a farmer that lives just over the way, and he actually is building right opposite me. So really lovely guy, but his diggers and things are a little bit noisy. I don't know if they're detectable on camera or not, but hopefully that's better anyway. Can't hear it for a minute now, so time will tell. these little kits where they've got all the lines like this, it always makes me think of painting by numbers, even though there's not any numbers on it. But it's kind of like felting by numbers, just filling in all of the gaps. Or also, if you've ever done the adult colouring books, it's kind of like that. Sort of quite mindful practice, just trying to stay in the lines. Noticing there's a little bit of sagging going on, but I think that should all kind of come together as we finish it off and put it in our hoop. If you wanted to try one of these kits, then I literally got this online. It was from, I think it's called Sheen, I don't know what it's called anyway, one of those. You can probably get them on Temu as well, but I'm not on that. Got my embroidery hoops from the same place. And they're very cute. They've got some really tiny ones as well, which is kind of cool. It's going quite well up to now. I'm not really sure what I was expecting. I think it's kind of is how I was expecting it to be. So that's good. I think I'll go in this middle bit now. Just going to thin that out. Bring it all the way down here. It's a nice idea though, combining embroidery and felting, because I think what is interesting on here, obviously we've got so many lines, and if you've been felting a long time, then obviously lines are completely possible. We're kind of doing a line now with felting, but at the same time, when you've got a lot of sort of straight lines to do, it can be very time consuming with felting. And sometimes then if you stab in the wrong place, it kind of like move your line and you have to go over it again. So I think the idea of using embroidery for straight lines is a really nice little touch. I don't know if they actually, I don't know if this actually contains the colours in here. No, I don't think it tells you what the colours are. No. Although it does label them on here. I was just wondering if these dark bits were all black, but they look like they were because there's only black in the kit. So I think all of these bits here are black. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe these very, very thin lines I'll leave for embroidery, but these outlines I'll do with wool. So these bigger ones, and we'll see how that goes. So I'll do one of these little thin ones now. So I'll just roll this nice and thin. I'll just bring it to there. Not all wool is created equal. So if you do have black wool, you might find it's not quite so easy to felt in as this is. So what is quite noticeable is there's not so much flyaway wool as you're felting. That's something that I really love about this wool, because it means when you're stabbing into like a line, an outline that you want to do, or maybe even sort of like facial features on a dog, anything like that, the wool actually goes where you want it to go mostly, rather than sort of having a lot of flyaway fibres that you've then got to go back and tuck in basically. And there's a few, but some wools are definitely more prone to that, and it can be quite frustrating. But if you are using normal wool and you are struggling with that, then you've probably heard me say before, you can dip your fingers in water Just dampen your fingers slightly. I wouldn't advise probably dipping the wool in water because that would make it a little bit too wet. But just if you've got slightly damp hands, that can make it a little bit easier to work with. I tuck those in slightly because I think I've gone a little bit fatter than the outline there. Actually, as I'm felting, what's interesting is where I noticed at the beginning where I'd done my little stab mark here and it was more noticeable. You just see it, yeah, it kind of brushes out. So it's actually isn't showing up the needle holes quite as badly as I thought. They're actually disappearing quite nicely. So it's working really, really well on this fabric. So I'm just going to pull this out and do a nice thin section, a little bit thinner. Just fold the end over so it's a little bit of a neater edge. Catch it with my needle and just come right up there next to the body. Okay, and then I'm going to come back up to this middle section and just fill in these little bits in between these dots. Just going to split this wool in half and send half of it in between those little dots. And then the other half is bring down here. Now, if you are felting something like this with a lot of details in, you're struggling to go around sort of small outlines, and you're not as bothered about it being, exactly in the place that you'd marked it to be, then if it's easier, you can just felt over it. So for instance, I could have just filled in this whole section with black and this whole section with black, and then just gone back and marked in the little bits afterwards. So you can always do it like that if you're struggling to sort of go around details and bits. Have a play, and it's trial and error. Just see what works for you. It's the best thing, really. so beautiful about butterflies. I was listening to a book recently, an Audible, called Worthy. I can't remember the name of the author at the moment, but anyway, she talked in there, about the traditional examples that we tend to use in relation to butterflies, about changing and things like that. She actually put it in a different light. She was saying how when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it's actually very, very vulnerable because when it breaks out of its chrysalis, first of all, its wings are really soft. And I found that really interesting because she talks about the fact that it's got to really exercise those muscles, flap its wings, and build up that strength in order to strengthen them enough to fly away. And so it's that kind of leap of faith that you've gone through that change where you've got to go from basically being a fully formed caterpillar to then turning into some mush inside of chrysalis and then breaking free and taking that leap of faith really to transform yourself into that beautiful butterfly. So you've got to use all of that strength to first of all break out of your chrysalis, and then you've got to make sure that you're going to be strong enough to survive in the real world. It was just an interesting analogy that I'd not really thought of from that angle before. You tend to think of it being sort of a wonderful, beautiful transformation, from that change from the caterpillar to the butterfly. The journey that caterpillar had to go through is quite unique as well. So it was interesting. So all of these bits where I've got like double lines here, I'm filling in with about the single lines. I'm going to try and leave for embroidery. That's the plan. Anyway, it could change. We will see. This is just an experiment and I'm just having fun. So we will just see what happens. But it's a nice little project. So I don't know, have you ever bought one of these kits? If you've ever bought one, I'd love to know how you got on with it. Presumably, if it's an embroidery kit, you embroidered it. How hard was the embroidery to do? Was it easy? Are you good at embroidery? And have you ever, tackled something with multimedia, mixed media, whether it's wool felt and embroidery, whether it's maybe painting the background and then filling it in with either embroidery or felting? Just something a little bit different. Have you had a go, or is it something that you've been meaning to have a go at and not got round to? So kind of how I was, but then I decided today I'm going to just go for it and start this project. And I'm really pleased that I started it because it's actually nice and relaxing. I think it does just keep reminding me of the adult colouring books because you can be very methodical just filling in these lines. There is something really mindful about that. Literally colouring in. A familiar sound of the stubbing as well. The other sound, I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear that with me changing the sound settings, but I also have some lovely garden birds and have a little feeder on my window. So I've got like a little bracket that attaches to the window, and then I've got the peanut feeder on it at the moment. So the birds absolutely love coming for their peanuts. And you can always hear them, sort of their little beaks pecking away at the metal feeder. And then every now and again, if they're a little bit boisterous, they tend to chase each other off. So if they're on the feeder and another bird comes up, sometimes they'll happily let them feed at the same time, but other times they are just not having any of it. And sometimes like there'll be a tiny little sparrow or chaffinch, and they don't want to let anyone else near their feeder. They're hilarious. And then you'll hear the metal sort of clunk against the glass. It's really funny. They all have such characters and personalities, as unique as we do, actually. No two birds are alike. One wonder if butterflies are the same. I wonder how unique they are. I wonder if they have like their own little personalities. I don't know. Be interesting. This black is coming together really nicely now. Just going to fold that back on itself just to kind of have a nicer, cleaner outline, and then use my needle to tuck in those excess little fibres. On the whole, you can see that there isn't a great deal of fluffy bits in the way, which is what's really nice about this. I'm not sure if that's going to have focus slightly, actually. Sorry if it has. Let's focus that a bit better. I'm literally just filling in all of these gaps. Big section to fill in now, so I'll just take a little bit of marble. Add a little bit of a twist just to give it a bit of stability. I'm just using my needle to pull the fibres just slightly out to fill out any gaps. Wrangle that round. Fill in that little bit there. Make that one nice and thick, roll it, and bring it back down to this bottom bit, join it all up. And I'm just going to neaten up this top bit because I seem to have a little bit of a gap. By just rolling a little section on the side of it on the edge, you can just neaten up any outlines that you want to do. And if you're still struggling, just tuck in the fibres with your needle. Like that. We'll be going over this a little bit again. Once you take a picture, you'll see way more as well. Like that. And then I think I'm going to come down to the body. So I think what we'll do is we'll keep where I can, I'll try and keep the little lines visible. Not sure how easy that's going to be to do. Try and leave a little bit of a gap there maybe. I'm going to just run a little bit of wool way along the outline of the body so that the sides are covered when I'm leaving gaps for the lines. Just do that again on the other side. So I'll just take some wool, roll it, pull it out, roll again. Fill in that little gap. The next little gap. I'm realising it's harder to do than I expected, leaving those little lines. So I'm not sure if actually it might be easier to just put them in afterwards. See if when you've got a little bit of a larger area to work with, but it's just hard when you're doing small lines. do the antennae in wool. I might change it later. So I'll just make it nice and thin. I think that's all of the black.